Hello everyone, and welcome to week 8 of English 120. I wanted to go over some of the things that you need to be working on this week. I realize there's been a delay in posting the lecture, and I apologize for that. I had some technical issues last week, but we are back on track, and I have extended the deadlines, as you saw in the, hopefully, in the email that I sent out to you. I was a little disappointed that only 2 people watched the essay and watched the lecture last week. Thank you to those who did and got back to me to let me know that they did. Those of you who aren't watching the lectures, I guess you probably won't even hear what I'm saying, but this is like coming to a lecture for class, and I count you watching this as part of your being a part of this class. And I do know when you watch the lecture and when you don't. So if you are just reading, grabbing the assignments and doing them, you will not get out of this class what you will get if you actually watch the lectures. So this week we are going to be going on with chapter 2 of the Call of the Wild. It's called The Law of Club and Fang. And we'll have a discussion forum about this chapter. What I do ask you to do is when you answer these questions, you'll need to use evidence from the text to support what you're saying. You also need to critically engage with your colleagues. So when you respond to a prompt, and when you respond to one of the questions, make sure you respond to show me that you're critically thinking. That's how you'll get points. Second, when you respond to your peers' post, you need to make sure that you bring in other things that we've been talking about. How can you bring in the discussion that we had about to build a fire, right? Where we research different aspects of what it's like to be in the cold, what it's like to have scurvy, right? Bring in what you've learned about the Klondike so far, and maybe do some outside research on the Klondike. I mean, this week, Buck actually arrives at the same place where all of these other events are taking place. So he arrives in the Klondike and becomes a part of this narrative. So it's important that you are aware of that and know the location of where he is in order to get the most out of this. We're also going to continue to work on our research project. You're going to be completing the research module, Critically Assessing Sources. Now this research module will give you a tour of the library and ask you to do some work in order to really show that there's a lot of great reading about what to do when you are at the library, you find sources, and then how do you figure out which ones are going to be good for your research project. We're going to practice that as part of the assignment, the research journal sources. You're going to find 3 sources and you are going to assess them. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So let's go back to Call of the Wild. We are now in the 2nd chapter. Now this is a very short book, and each chapter is not so long. You can actually read this book cover to cover in 3 hours. I choose this book because I've been teaching you how to actively read all 7 weeks before today. So I expect when you sit down and read Call of the Wild, you have a pen in your hand. You're looking up words you don't know. You are making connections between this and other things we've read in the last few weeks. So let's talk a little bit about. I want to put these photos here so you really see what a dog sled team looks like in Alaska in the cold. So this is a period picture of a dog sled team. They're all howling. And this is a diagram of an Alaskan style sled. And you can see how what this looks like. It's the reverse angle of what you see in the photograph above. And it gives you some of the actual terminology. There are more terms, and I want you to make sure that you look those up as you're reading. It will make this reading so much better. So what's happened so far? Buck was taken from his beautiful home, his comfortable life, because Manuel lost a bet, right, and needed to get some money fast. So he sold he sold Buck, who was a domesticated dog. He sold him out of his comfortable life, and Buck quickly transitioned into the law of club and fang, right? The process of becoming, being at fear of someone ruling over you, which is a very different life than he had at the judge's house. So this week, you're going to be reading this chapter where Buck arrives into the hustle and bustle of the gold rush as it is happening. And he starts to understand what the laws of club and fang are. He started to learn it on the narwhal on his way up, right, on the ship coming up from Santa Clara, and now he's actually living it as he's given his new task of becoming part of a dog sled team. So I'd like you to clearly define for me what the laws of club and fang are that Buck learned in chapter 2. And then how are these laws different than what Buck was used to? So tell me about this transition. And I want you to defend your answer with evidence from the text. That means I want you to give me quotations both from chapter 1 and from chapter 2 that show me how Buck is changing, okay? And then secondly, what is the one thing that Dave and Solix live for? What is driving them? What's their passion? And why do you think they are like this? How do you think that they got this way? Can you think of examples of other animals or humans that show these traits? What does this tell you about animal and human nature? And I want you to defend your answer with evidence from the text. If you were Buck, which of the other other sled dogs would you choose to be your teacher, and why? How is this dog like or unlike Francois as a teacher? Defend your answer with evidence from the text. What trait ensures that Buck will survive in the North? How is this aspect of his character shown in the story? How would this trait have been accepted in his former life? And what does this say about the differences in the two worlds? I want you to defend your answers with evidence from the text. You'll notice in this chapter that Buck is changing, especially towards the end of the chapter. I want you to tell me what's going on and connect it to naturalism, to the ideas that we've been talking about in previous weeks. In adapting to his new world, has Buck developed or retrogressed? Has he moved into a better state, or is he going backwards? And I want you to defend your answer with evidence from the text. The last few lines of this chapter give us kind of a summary of what's happened to Buck. It's like he's on the threshold of becoming something new. I want you to think about that when you answer these questions, okay? Fate led Buck to this new life, and how is he going to deal with it, all right? Now, the other thing we're working on is we're taking baby steps towards starting our research project. I want you to so last week you put in your possible topics that you'd like to work on. I will be sending you comments today or tomorrow that explain whether or not I think these are good topics for you and give you some ideas. As you know, if you wanted to have different topics than those listed on the slide, you had to get permission. And I only got an email from one person asking for a different topic, so I'm assuming what I see inside of last week's exercise are only the things on that list, and no, you cannot change them now. You will need to, this week, after you do the research module, finding appropriate sources, I want you to find at least 3 appropriate sources for one of the topics that you're thinking about writing about. Now I'm going to make a recommendation on which of the 3 that you work on, or I'll give you 1 or 2 that I think you should work on, and I'd like you to choose based on that. You must find these sources at the Napa Valley College Library. The whole point of this class is you are learning how to do research and how to use that research to write a paper. I'd like you to cite the sources. I'd like you to list them, try listing them in MLA format, and remember we have a whole chapter on writing MLA formatted citations. And I'd like you to tell me how you found them. So what did you do when you went to the library? Then, using the reading for meaning page that you found in the research module this week, and there's a link here, describe the source's purpose, its audience or reader, its thesis and main idea, its organization and evidence, and its language and style. You need 3 of these, and it's due on the 20th at 11:59 p.m. You'll see you have a lot of time. I expect that this is well written and in MLA format. Please make sure you turn this in on time, and please come see me or talk to me if you have any questions. That's it for this week, guys. I look forward to seeing you online. As always, please email me at idunkel@napavalleycollege.edu if you have any questions.